Now, Catholics in Nigeria have expressed hope for a peaceful transition following the death of Pope Francis. In Makurdi, Nigeria, priests and congregants gathered for Mass, reflecting on the Pope's legacy. Local Catholics expressed belief that the pontiff had fulfilled his duties, acknowledging his contributions to the Church and humanity. For more reaction now to the passing of the Pope, let's speak to Father Rampeoane Hlobo, who's the director of the Jesuit Justice and Ecology Network of Africa. Father, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this very afternoon. It must be a very busy time for you and many of those that are doing work for the Church across the globe. Let's just speak about the Pope. I mean, he was seen as a reformer elected during a very difficult time within the Church. In your view, did he successfully carry out the renewal of the Church?
Well, I suppose, good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. I suppose when we look at the work of a Pope, I think we should look at it as a mission. You know, the mission, one is called to carry out a certain mission. So when we talk of a reformer, he did what he could at the time that he had to do that job. So the mission is never finished. It's a continuation of the mission that Jesus Christ started. So we see ourselves as followers of Christ who partake in the mission of Christ. So we participate in that mission and we try to do the best that we can given our talents and capacity and the time that we have. So he did his bit. He did what he could. Of course, there were challenges, but yes, I think to a greater extent, he managed to reform a bit, given the time that he had and the energy that he had.
Right. What would you classify as the three most defining features of this mission by Pope Francis?
I think for me, what stands out is, the model of the Church that he wanted. You will remember just soon after he was elected Pope in March, just over 12 years ago, one of his first international media interviews, he talked about the model or the kind of a church that he wanted. And he specifically spoke of a church that's like a field hospital where people come to the church, they get healed so that they can continue the battle of the challenges that they face in their lives. So he was a Pope who wanted a church that heals people, a church that embraces people, but that does not reject others, that makes everybody to feel at home and everybody to be strengthened and to be nourished. So that was the one model that he really wanted the church to be. Secondly, he wanted a church that cares for the marginalized. That was the second thing I think that he spoke loudly about. He was always concerned about those who are living in the existential periphery of our society, making sure that he becomes the voice of the voiceless, the voice of the marginalized. And I think the third, and the one that really stood out for me of all the three, the care of creation, the care of God's creation. You remember his first letter on creation that he wrote in 2015, Laudato Si, where he was saying that, God's creation is no longer as beautiful and as good as God saw it. It's now, the earth has become more and more like a pile of filth. So his concern for God's creation, especially the marginalized, the poor, and God's creation. And he saw the cry of the poor and the cry of the earth being the same one complex, complicated cry. So those three things, the model of the church that he wanted, care for the marginalized, the poor, those who live in the existential periphery of our society, and the care of creation. Those are the three things that stand out for me. Of course, there are many others that he spoke about, but yeah, those three really stood out for me.
Well, Father, you speak about how he was about embracing and healing, and most importantly, about caring for the marginalized. He chose to live a very simple life in caring and focusing on the poor. How do you think this shaped the perceptions of the papacy globally when it came to how people view the Church?
Well, I suppose, when somebody takes a certain stand, you will always have those who support and those who are against. But I think for him, what was important and even for the leadership of the church, he always like phrases like smelling like the sheep. A shepherd must smell like a sheep, encouraging the priests and even the bishops and the cardinals to take care of the marginalized, to be with them, to journey with them. So that's in that spirit of synodality where everybody is embraced and journeying together as pilgrims. This year, declared this year as the Jubilee year of hope, where as pilgrims of hope, we journey together and we help each other. So he was the kind of a pope who really wanted to see people taking care of each other, believers taking care of each other. And that all is encompassed in the mission of Christ, the mission of building the kingdom of God, the kingdom of peace, the kingdom of love, the kingdom of justice. And those were things that were close to his heart, especially the marginalized and the creation itself.
Yeah.
So I think that's
right. I mean, Father, you are at the Justice and Ecology Network of Africa. Just speak to us about your interactions with the Pope and especially the unique relationship that he has with Africa. How has this continent and his approach to the continent really stood out for you?
Yes. Being involved in this work, obviously, it made me kind of read more about what was important for Pope Francis. Firstly, when he was appointed Pope, he took the name Francis, and we know that Francis is a saint in the Catholic Church that is popularly known for taking care of creation, for all of God's creation. And so he took that name of Francis, and already that was an indication in the direction that he was going. Saint Francis was a poor man who lived simple life, simplicity, and taking care of creation. And that was the landmark of Pope Francis, the marginalized and God's creation. Those were two things that were very close to his heart. And so being in the Justice and Ecology Network here in Africa, we really take an example from his teachings. And mind you, it's important also to know that he is not the first leader of the Catholic Church to talk about the care of creation. But I think he made lots of noise about taking care of that. And even his second letter on creation. So in 2015, I spoke about Laudato Si, which he wrote in 2015. And then 2 years ago, he wrote Laudate Deum, which was precisely about climate change and delegates, addressing delegates who were going to COP29. So he has always been a proponent of taking care of creation, taking care of the poor. And in his encyclical of Laudato Si, he talks about the problems that we are facing, not only being social or environmental. So they are a complex combination of both social and environmental problems. So those were very close to his heart. And so coming from Latin America, from the what we call the developing world, he also understood very well the challenges of the poor. And I suppose that's why he always made lots and lots of noise about taking care of the poor, taking care of God's creation.
Certainly.
Because he has seen the suffering of the poor firsthand. He has journeyed with them when he was working in Argentina and as an Archbishop of Buenos Aires in Argentina. So in Latin America, there's a lot of poverty, a lot of suffering. So he had lived with the people there, and he knew what he was talking about. And so for him, journeying with the poor, journeying with the marginalized was something that was very close to his heart. And we even saw when he became Pope, even just the way he started dressing up.
Right.
He wasn't dressing like the previous popes. He really took simplicity to another level, if I may put it that way.